This episode is brought to you by Marqeta. Payment programs that scale and customer experiences that inspire. Don't sacrifice one for the other. Choose a payments provider who can deliver on both. Choose Marqeta. Learn more at marqeta.com/FTT. Hello, and welcome to a special holiday edition of the Fintech Takes podcast. Being a full-time content creator is very difficult. You're always on, which for me means 3 newsletters and 1 podcast a week, while hopefully maintaining the level of quality and insightfulness that you've all come to expect. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of work. But occasionally, and in fact, often, it's very, very fun. In fact, it's so much fun that I can't believe this is a real job, especially this time of year in December, because when I'm not traveling and things slow down a bit, this is a time when I can experiment with fun, silly ideas that I've always wanted to try. And because I have complete autonomy over what content gets published here at Fintech Takes, I can try whatever I want. Today's podcast is probably the best example of that. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you've heard the voices of Kiah Haslett, creator of Fintech Takes banking newsletter, and my colleague, Jason Mikula, creator of Fintech Business Weekly, and Jason Henrichs, CEO of Alloy Labs and co-host of the Breaking Banks podcast. Now, what you might not know is that in addition to frequently collaborating with Jason, and Kiah on fintech content, the 4 of us also have a very active group chat where we talk about a lot of non-fintech topics as well. One of the most intense ongoing discussions that the 4 of us have had over the last couple of years is whether Die Hard, the 1988 film starring Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman, is in fact a Christmas movie. The discussion has been so passionate and at times unhinged that I thought it would make for a fun holiday-themed podcast. So that's what we're doing today. Me, Jason, and Kiah talking about Die Hard. There is a tie-in to fintech and banking because, as you probably know, the plot of Die Hard revolves around $640 million worth of bearer bonds, which are a fascinating and oddly relevant financial instrument. But to be completely honest, this is mostly not a banking or fintech podcast. Instead, it's just 4 friends arguing about a movie that 3 of them really like. I hope you enjoy it. I hope that you have watched Die Hard because there are going to be some spoilers in this episode, just as a warning. And I hope most of all that you have a fabulous holiday break. This is Fintech Takes, the podcast keeping you in the loop on all the latest fintech trends, news, and ideas. I'm Alex Johnson, creator of the Fintech Takes newsletter, your host and self-confessed fintech nerd. Let's go. All right, now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. This is the Die Hard podcast, mostly because here at Fintech Takes, we like to have fun at the end of the year to wind things down. This technically is a banking and fintech movie, as we're going to talk about, but mostly it's an excuse to have 3 of my favorite people on to just have fun for an hour. Jason, and Kiah, thank you all so much for joining me.
It is an honor.
Kiah, how long have we been having this Die Hard argument? Like, I feel like this is how I know it is the holiday season, because Kiah and I start fighting about, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I feel like this is at least the 2nd or 3rd year I've participated in that debate with this group of people.
Yes, the group chat has been exploding for years about this argument, and so we are going to get into that and a whole bunch of other things. So the plan for this episode is just to talk about Die Hard, one of the greatest films ever made, which we're going to pull apart using 10 questions that I randomly came up with and gave to Jason Mikula, Jason Henrichs, and Kiah Haslett. And we're going to try through those 10 questions to hash out all of our feelings and all of our disagreements about this. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, a Christmas classic.
Whoa.
Here are some facts about Die Hard before we get going. First, it was released in July of 1988.
When most hit Christmas movies do hit the market, famously.
Fair. It is based on a 1979 action thriller novel called Nothing Lasts Forever, which the author wrote based on a dream that he had, which is wild. The book is about a cop who visits his daughter at her company's Christmas party, so daughter, not estranged wife, and everyone is taken hostage by German terrorists who want to expose the company's corrupt dealings with other countries. Spoiler alert, at the end of that book, the daughter dies, which is a little bit darker and more depressing than you would want in a Christmas film. The movie is directed by John McTiernan and stars Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman, whose performances we will get into. It earned about $140 million worldwide at the box office, which made it the 7th biggest film of 1988, behind such classics as Crocodile Dundee 2, in which he goes to New York City. So 1988, interesting movie year. It received mixed reviews at the time, which I know Kiah is going to bring more in on in a second, but is now, I just want to say, considered one of the greatest action films of all time. It was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the United States Library of Congress, and Die Hard was in fact selected for preservation in the National Film Registry in 2017. So that's what you need to know about the film Die Hard. One of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast is because, as you guys just illustrated in our very lively group chat, one of the things I've noticed is I think we all have a slightly different relationship to movies, to Christmas movies, to the role that film plays in our lives. I will say for myself, movies were something we watched a lot in my house growing up. My parents, before they could afford to buy VHS tapes, would buy the blank VHS tapes and record movies shown on cable. So a lot of my initial introduction to movies came on the cable versions of different movies. Die Hard was one of those, which was actually probably good for me as a kid because I got to be spared quite a bit of profanity, which we may also end up quoting in this podcast, especially as Mikula continues to drink his mulled wine. But I wanted to ask each of you, what was your sort of relationship to movies growing up? And then specifically, when was the first time that you saw Die Hard? Kiah, you first.
I don't think I watched a lot of movies or TV growing up. I don't know if I've ever given that impression that I'm not particularly cultured in that regard.
I think I've given you a hard time about this on the podcast
Yeah,
before.
I haven't seen a lot of stuff. I was also kind of a scaredy kid growing up, so I could get scared really easily. My dad definitely wasn't sitting my sister and I down so we could watch Die Hard. So I saw it, I think, for the first time in 2019. And I recall literally pausing the movie and watching it on Amazon Prime, which is how I rewatched it, to look up what a bearer bond was because I wasn't sure what we were talking about. So,
we're gonna get into
and then
that.
I wrote about it. So I actually think this is less of a Christmas movie and more of a movie about archaic financial instruments.
Okay. All right. We'll set that aside for a moment. Henrichs, how about you?
Well, being the old person of the group, I still remember, and growing up in a small town in southern Wisconsin, I still remember the rush after school on Fridays to go get the one VHS tape, right? Like of whatever you were going to watch for the friend that was going to be staying over.
Sure.
And going. And I was not allowed a lot of TV as a child, 1 hour a week, right? Which resulted in a lot of really extreme behaviors. Like for the A-Team, I would watch like the last 5 minutes of it, like the blow up the stuff sequence, but only the last 5 minutes, right? So like I would take that hour and parcel it out. But movies on Friday nights were a different story, right? And so like I have a great love for that VHS tape. And we can talk about just the rewind fees, right? Like it's the equivalent of the overdraft fee. Absolutely.
You mean a junk fee? A junk fee?
A junk fee that is so far disproportionate to the actual crime committed.
When was the first time you saw Die Hard specifically? Did you see it when it came out?
Oh, I saw it when it came out, and it was amazing. We were in Madison, Wisconsin, and my dad took me while my mom and sister were at a mall.
Oh, that is awesome. Did your dad like it too? Were you guys just like mind blown as soon as you left?
Mind absolutely blown. And fun fact, so I did not own a TV for many, many years. And I only got a TV when Jessica, my wife, and I were moving in together because she worked in TV news. And she's like, there's no way that, like, I'm living in a house and we're living in Boston. She goes, and Ted Kennedy dies and I can't actually watch the news feed. And so I surprised her by getting a TV and it's crazy how big, expensive, and heavy that was. But the very first thing I watched on that old Sony TV was Die Hard.
Yes, I love that.
And that would have been 2009.
See, it's the classic that just keeps going on and on. I will also add, Henrichs, to your story that the first movie my wife and I ever watched together was Die Hard. Before we even actually officially started dating.
You guys are the least romantic people of all time.
No. You just don't understand. And we're going to get into this too. But like the romantic like undertones of Die Hard, it's a perfect date movie. It's a perfect date movie.
Absolutely
Perfect date movie.
All right, Mikula, how about you?
So we watched a lot of movies growing up. Particularly because we did not have cable. So my parents were still married until I was in like 5th grade. And I honestly, to this day, I don't know who was vetoing getting cable. I missed all of the like cultural touchstones about watching like Nickelodeon shows just like go straight over my head. Like they mean nothing to me. But I did have, well, I suppose I still have, an older brother. He's 5 years older than I am. And so we watched a lot of these like 80s, 90s action movies. I'm thinking like, I mean, the Russians were like almost always the bad guys, as we also discussed on group on the group chat. It was like Hunt for the Red October. Anything involving Sylvester Stallone or, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And Die Hard was definitely, in the canon. I really couldn't tell you when I first saw it. So I mean, 1988, I would have been 4 years old. So I don't think my parents were that absentee. But I'm going to guess I saw it sometime in like the early or mid 90s, presumably from VHS from Blockbuster, or I don't know if you guys ever did this. My dad was a big fan of renting VHS movies from the library. So it'd be, you go and I don't know if he actually went to the trouble to put them on reserve, but that was a lot of like classic James Bond movies via the Cook Memorial Library in Libertyville. So I've probably seen Die Hard, I kid you not, like easily more than 30 or 40 times. I've seen it far too many times.
Yeah, that's probably about right for me too. I've seen it when I was rewatching it. I found myself being able to like skip ahead mentally and like anticipate like when good quotes and stuff were going to come. Kiah, you're shaking your head. Before we get to the 10 questions, I will give you the floor temporarily to take us back, because you did a lot of research for this podcast, taking it as seriously or more seriously than like our normal podcast. But you looked up the review in the New York Times from 1988, and I already said that it received, let's call it, mixed critical reviews at the time before people realized what a genius film it was. Kiah, do you want to quote from that review?
So watching Die Hard, the New York Times said in 1988, is like snorting pure oxygen. It doesn't clear the brain as much as it whistles through it. It leaves no trace whatsoever. It is an utterly silly movie that has been put together with scary competence. The movie is as bright, shiny, and noisy as a video game, and so fast-paced that even bogus thrills count. It renders basic reasoning skills superfluous. One does not have to understand the whys of the story to follow what's going on. And then it also says that Die Hard is not a film for children, nor is it a film for adults. Instead, it's a movie for the new true blue American of the electronic age, the kid adult. And I don't disagree with
that
this.
And I feel like too close to home.
You're looking at all three of us simultaneously while you said that. You were looking right into all of our eyes.
Just staring deeply
moment.
into your guys' eyes. And I'm glad you like the film.
Fucking A, I do. All right, so we are now going to do 10 questions, roughly guiding us through Die Hard. There's one in particular where, as banking nerds, we're all going to get a little bogged down. But before we get to that, my first question, and Henrichs, I'm going to come to you first on this one, is about Bruce Willis. So, as a little context, in 1988, and Mikula, you already mentioned this, the biggest action movie stars in the world were Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. They were both offered the role of John McClane, but turned it down. In the case of Schwarzenegger, he wanted to switch to comedies, like Kindergarten Cop. And so he was making a pivot at that exact moment, turned it down. Because the book, Die Hard, was based on a sequel, the earlier book, called The Detective, had also been turned into a movie in 1968, starring the one and only Frank Sinatra, which actually, by the way, was Frank Sinatra's most successful film role by far. And the studio was legally required to offer Sinatra the role of John McClane, but he was 70 years old at the time and turned it down. Other actors that were offered the role but turned it down include, this is quite a list, Richard Gere, Clint Eastwood, Harrison Ford, Burt Reynolds, Nick Nolte, Mel Gibson, Don Johnson, Richard Dean Anderson, Paul Newman, James Caan, and Al Pacino. The studio turned to Bruce Willis out of desperation after all of those other people passed, even though at the time he was mostly known as a TV comedy actor and had only been in one film before Die Hard, which was a comedy. So he'd never been in an action film before. And my question, Mr. Henrichs, we'll start with you. Does this movie work without Bruce Willis? And alternatively, were there other versions of this movie starring any of those other actors that you would have preferred to have seen? When it comes to your payments provider, you can't afford to compromise. Marqeta's modern payment solutions flex with your business without the trade-offs. Stable and agile, secure and innovative, scalable and configurable. If they say you can't have it all, don't believe them. Your business demands more. Choose a payments provider that delivers more. Choose Marqeta. Visit marqeta.com/FTT to learn more.
I don't think you can take Bruce Willis out of this. That it is his quirky personality, the parts where he was, improvising on screen for parts of it. Right. He's got that kind of New Yorker-y edge of, zero shits to be given, that I think it has to be Bruce Willis.
That's how I feel too. Mikula, go ahead.
No, I agree. I mean, I was aware that he was not the first choice. I did not realize quite how many big names had been recruited and declined the role. Yeah. I was also doing some very quick research, not as thoroughly as Kiah. And Bruce Willis was paid $5 million for this role. And that's in 1988 money. At this point, I don't even know what that would be. Someone quickly adjust that for inflation. That's a lot of money for his, and the comedy movie you mentioned did not perform well. It was kind of a disaster. Yeah. But to Henrichs' point, I've never seen the TV show that apparently Bruce Willis was concurrently filming during the day. Moonlighting. Because it came out when I was 1 year old. But from what I gather, rub it in. At this point, it's irrelevant. But from what I gather, it channels some of that sort of sarcastic wit that Henrichs is mentioning, and I really do think, something that makes this not just another action movie with stuff blowing up is some of these funny, sarcastic quips that certainly were not common in the other kind of blow stuff up action movies at the time. So I find it very hard to imagine a Clint Eastwood or a Don Johnson decked out in 1980s Miami Vice gear doing this movie.
Come on out to California, have a few laughs. Yeah, that's a huge part of the middle of the movie is him by himself talking to himself, right? Which I don't really the talking to yourself thing is a small thing, but I don't remember any action movie before this ever having the character, the main action star, express doubt. It was all Schwarzenegger busting through doors with zero fear. This was the dawn of the everyman action film, which is very, I think, more common now, but it was groundbreaking at the time. Kiah, I know your wish is that Sinatra had said yes.
Can you imagine Frank Sinatra is running through the vents and he's going down the elevator shaft? I really want that world. And then I don't understand, the building, the office building was such a character in Die Hard that I would love to see some of these actors interact with the building itself. And
like
then also
Schwarzenegger crawling through the vents is what you want to see? Okay,
yes.
Gotcha.
And then also we never really get an explanation about John McClane's shoes. Like he just tried on one pair of shoes, but there's more dead people shoes for him to try on than the one. And so that was kind of an interesting element that I thought was like kind of tied to him as a character.
Yeah, well, again, it's kind of the vulnerability thing, right? Is like he tries on the one pair of shoes right at the beginning and then just kind of decides like, fuck it, I'm just going to do no shoes the whole time, which then comes back towards the end to get him when the bad guys shoot all the glass that he has to walk over. I mean,
But did he get the spoiler? Did he get the spoiler alert?
A spoiler alert. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure at this point, Mikula, like everyone's allowed to be like,
the very beginning.
You haven't seen it, you're not going to see it.
The statute of limitations, and our audio producer has not seen this, so like Al, if you're still there, we may bring you back in to ask you some Die Hard questions after the end of this podcast. But like for the most part, I feel like you've either seen Die Hard or you're okay with us spoiling it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like with the other actors, I was looking through that list, like what? I mean, Richard Gere, no, that'd be weird. Clint Eastwood would be totally weird and wouldn't work. Harrison Ford does this exact thing in Air Force One, which rules, but like he already does this. Burt Reynolds, no. Nick Nolte, no. Mel Gibson does a like crazier version of this in Lethal Weapon. I'm kind of intrigued, like going off of Kia's point about someone a little older, like a Paul Newman, maybe, but like it wouldn't have the same goofiness. I think it has to be Bruce Willis. All right. Question number 2. Where does Hans Gruber rank in the list of greatest villains in movie history? And part 2 of this question, did Alan Rickman give the best performance in this movie? Kiah, I'm going to go to you first.
So I was a little confused by this question.
No.
What do you mean greatest villain of movie history?
Well, let me put it in this context. You ready? Because I was thinking about this question as I was watching the movie again last night. I've rewatched it several times since I came up with the idea to do this. And I think the thing I was like thinking about is you can think of better performances and better movie villains, but they're almost all in like horror movies, right? So it's like Hannibal Lecter, Sir Anthony Hopkins, Silence of the Lambs, or it's Jack Nicholson in The Shining, right? Like it's these roles that are very iconic, but those roles get lead actors because they're the star of the film. And the person being hunted or attacked or chased by the bad guy is like the best supporting actor, not the best actor. This is like a best actor worthy performance in a supporting role in an action film, not a horror film. So Kiah, what say you to that?
I still don't, as a Hans Gruber as a villain no, he's not one of the greatest. I think I'll accept anyone that argues Alan Rickman acted the hell out of it, but I don't think that the role itself is elevated to a best performance or best greatest villain. And Mikula and I were reading a blog post that argues that Gruber is actually kind of an idiot, and he sounds swarthy and maybe he sounds like cool and European and sophisticated, but I don't think you should fall for that accent. The man is money hungry. He doesn't even his entire criminal gang is taken down by like one man. Like, come on.
I guess that's fair. We'll critique some of the plot holes a little bit later. Mikula, what did you think of Rickman's performance?
Yeah, I mean, I will also pull the same card Kiah pulled and sort of parse this. Like, I don't think it works without Rickman. And you know that, actually, because, like, no one cares about Die Hard 2, which came out 2 years later. And
True.
It still had Bruce Willis, but, like, the rest of what I would describe as, like, the ensemble cast that, like, kind of makes this very violent movie also simultaneously, like, kind of funny is the combination of Rickman plus my favorite, Reginald VelJohnson, a.k.a. Carl Winslow from Family Matters.
Oh, yeah.
If you know, you know. So I think it's fair to parse and say, like, is the individual villain like a greatest villain in movie history? I tend to agree with Kiah, probably not. In the aggregate, does the sum of the parts of this like kind of quirky, frankly, like inexperienced as far as movie acting goes, ensemble cast, like really deliver? Absolutely, including Rickman, of course.
Well, and you pointed this out in your research, Mikula,
but he's dead.
Well,
sorry.
Yes. No.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know either. It's very sad.
Wait, you guys didn't know Professor Snape died?
No.
It somehow escaped me. I mean,
right.
Alan Rickman, so
Thought you liked
Snape,
movies,
obviously,
whatever,
a whole
okay.
bunch of other performances. He's like legendarily great. I didn't realize this. Jason, you said in your research that Die Hard was the first movie Alan Rickman was in.
Yeah.
And prior to that, similar kind of to Bruce Willis, had only appeared in television.
And he was a stage actor. He was in a Shakespeare company immediately before filming Die Hard, I think.
Yeah, he didn't think it was a serious endeavor and was really worried that he, would be typecast into this, and he was a serious stage actor.
And I guess he was typecast a little bit as like kind of villain with a little bit of like more depth, and I guess there is kind of that Shakespearean sort of like heft to his performance a little bit, so I could see that. Although I also think in a lot of ways I think Die Hard was sort of setting a trend for where movies were going, because that's a big thing you see now is like getting sort of a heavyweight actor to play like the villain to bring like more heft and seriousness to a movie. So I do think he definitely brought that. I also would say that he was and this was another bit of Mikula research. At the very end, spoiler alert, Alan Rickman's character dies, and he falls off the building. And when they were filming this, apparently the crew told him they were going to count down from 3, 2, 1 and then drop him, but they dropped him on 3. So the look of terror on his face, which you get in like slow motion, was a real like kind of bit of
40
movie
feet
making magic
onto an airbag. Like he called it the greatest act of betrayal.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's what you're looking for. That's what makes John McTiernan like an iconic action movie director, who we're going to get to a little bit later in this discussion. All right. So this, I think, is a fun question because, again, as we've referenced, all of our ages are a little bit different. Kiah was not born in 1988, so she's the one who was not alive at the time that this movie came out. But here's my question, stolen actually from one of my favorite podcasts called The Rewatchables, where they talk about movies all the time. What is the most 1988 thing about this movie? Henrichs, I'm going to go to you first.
Oh, man. It has got to be the cassette going into the limo with, like, the soundtrack. And he's just going to sit in the back of the limo and jam. Like, that is as 1988 as it gets. Like, I still remember my classic 80 days for the New Year's Eve, countdown, and you'd be there with your cassette tape, right, to record on radio and use that as your source material for the entire next year's mixes you were going to put together.
So that just brought you right back.
Oh, it took me right back.
Oh man, that's a good one. I will say the West Coast like rap too in the limo after they put the cassette tape in, that whole scene, very 1988. Mikula, how about you?
So I think my true answer would be just like the limo in aggregate, since Henrichs has already sort of generally spoken to that. I will go with the attire of the people attending the office Christmas party on Christmas Eve, which is just giving very, particularly Holly Gennaro, the character that is Bruce Willis's wife in the movie, giving very like 1980s like power suit business.
I thought it could have been more annoying, honestly.
It could have been more. It could have been more Dallas, like
annoying.
make the hair bigger, make the clothes louder. But this was LA, so it was a little bit more fashionable.
That's true. I mean, Kiah, I know you have lots of thoughts on the fashion in this film.
Yeah, I loved. So there was a couple. So the limo is also very 1980s and early 90s coded. I listened to a Slate podcast that talked about where did all the limos go. And then in addition to the clothing, I noticed that the FBI, when they show up, they were wearing like Wall Street trading shirts, like the blue shirt with the white collar, and not FBI jackets, which which we've talked about how hard FBI jackets go. We've also talked, there's Hans Gruber says, rumor has it that Arafat buys his suits there. And that was like a really great 1980s reference. I thought this line is said very early on in the movie. A pregnant woman says to John's boss or whatever, or sorry, John's wife, do you think this baby can handle a little sip? And they're talking about drinking alcohol at the company party. And the response back is, that baby is ready to tend bar. And that seems like a line that's only going to work in a movie that's set in the 1980s.
That's a good one. I noticed that one too. That line stood out. The limo is actually a pretty big part of like the whole movie, really tying the whole thing together. And Argyle, the limo driver, like kind of plays sort of a recurring, sort of somewhat comedic role throughout the entire film. So that was actually very well tied in the whole time. I also noticed lots of smoking. So typical of 1980s, but like, I don't know how many cigarettes are smoked in this film, but it's a lot. And everyone is smoking. John has his gun on the airplane. That jumped out really early because he's a New York City cop and he's like getting his bag after they land in LA, and the guy next to him like sees his gun like just on his hip, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'm a cop." Like that was like extremely 1988.
Yeah, there was a lot of airplane hijackings that were kind of happening in the 80s, and I felt like there was some gestures towards that, and that was maybe one of those scenes.
Yeah, I totally agree. There was also a lot of, I think what you'd consider to be sort of non-kosher office sort of activities happening. There was cocaine. There was some office fraternization happening. Kiah, in the notes you have, did HR even exist in the 1980s? I don't know. I wasn't working then, so I can't speak to that. Doesn't seem so.
Actually, it seems like that was pretty, like, wasn't that seen as the fraternization was like kind of seen as like a normal, tolerated thing you'd expect to see at a holiday party, right?
I think
like
it was kind of like a comedic bit, right?
Okay.
Like, oh, these two people are sneaking off into someone's office, like it jumped out on a rewatch.
Forget the HR. Where were the financial controls attached to this? You know, Nakatomi is a trading. I mean, we had all sorts of issues.
Financial controls are a 7-layer safe. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, we have lots of
computer passwords. Like, did they not have passwords on their computers in the 1980s?
No, they did, because they kill Takagi at the beginning because he won't give them the code, and he's like, I could give it to you, but Tokyo will just change it in a morning.
Yeah,
and they're like, fine.
I mean, honestly, that was like pretty solid password controls is a password that kind of changes in a couple of hours.
He was well trained. I mean, but then they didn't need the password. That's the other thing, is like the password became irrelevant. But also on the
elevators, when he sits down at the elevators and is controlling the computer to shut down the elevators, like, do you need like a code to get into the computer?
It was the 80s, man. Like
that was something I wanted to ask about too, because sometimes you see little like technology things from these old movies where it's like they're almost like proud of the technology that they've been able to work into the plot. And I noticed that when McClane shows up at the party at the very beginning, he's like checking in at the lobby, and the guard's like, "Oh, hey, who are you here to see?" And he's like, "Holly Gennaro." And he's like, "All right, type it in on the terminal." And he had to type it in on a touchscreen 1988 terminal that then like showed him like a real-time map of what floor Holly Gennaro is on. And then like the security guard looked at it and was like, "Oh yeah, 30th floor. They're the only people here. You can head on up." And didn't like check his ID or anything. So in terms of like physical security, I have some questions about Nakatomi Corporation.
Well, were any of you actively working pre 9/11?
Nope.
No.
Unless the library that I worked at counts.
No. But we had an office in New York in the pre 9/11, post 9/11. Like showing an ID was not a thing before 9/11. Just didn't do it.
Well, it's fascinating though, because I mean that makes sense, but then like, is it that McClane shows up still somewhat during business hours, but then because like when the bad guys show up, they like shoot the guard right away and like don't take any chances or mess around at all. It was unclear to me like when security was supposed to like tighten up and like how all of that worked, because McClane just like walked right in. He could have been a terrorist, and like he just walked right in.
Don't give Kiah any other plot holes to pick on.
I know. We're not even like really to the part where we're supposed to be picking holes. All right. Here's my next question. Question 4. This question is, I think, tentatively titled, "Was this person good at their job?" And I have two people I want to ask about. The first is Richard Thornburg, who is the sleazy TV reporter played by William Atherton. And my second, "Was this person good at his job?" is Harry Ellis, who is the overconfident, cocaine-taking, sleazy Nakatomi executive. So, Kiah, I'm going to go to you on the reporter, since you're the only one who went to school for journalism. Was Richard Thornburg good at his job?
I think if you're a viewer at home, you would think he's good at his job. He is what we would call doing like his broad objectives of going to a scene and finding and reporting on it. As far as I can tell, he reports accurate information, which is another metric of quality in journalism. He also finds people who are connected to the story. There's kind of this like perverse thing that happens during a breaking news story, which is you would want to go try to identify the family members as quickly as possible. And this can be pretty macabre after some sort of tragedy or whatever. And he does do that. Now, do I think he's the most ethical person I've ever seen? No. And am I happy to talk shit about broadcast journalists relative to web and print journalists as being maybe not as, they're just more like kind of talking head, pretty faces versus the more serious web journalists like myself. Yes, I'm happy to do that. And so I will say that I didn't realize he had kind of like broke into the family's house, but when he threatens to call INS,
he forces his way in there, which is, and there's no parents there to supervise that.
So that was bad. That was bad that he did that and unethical.
Yeah. As a parent, I wasn't in love with that part.
But I think he's fine.
No,
he's not the villain. He's not the villain of the movie.
No, he's not the villain.
He makes an appearance in Die Hard 2, so he must have been good enough.
He does. That's right. Yeah, no, he does. So I mean, and like William Atherton's actually pretty like well-known 80s and 90s actor, and so I think he was. When I was watching the beginning, when they were doing like the starring Bruce Willis, starring so and so, he was like the third or fourth name mentioned. So like, I think in some ways the makers of the movie thought he was like a maybe more important character than he actually is in the plot. He's in it quite a bit. Mikula Ellis, the Nakatomi executive, good at his job, bad at his job.
So if I had to be charitable, I would say we don't really have enough data to answer that question because it's not even really clear what his job is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the most information I can summon immediately to my brain about that is him like bullying Holly into showing this, I think it was a Rolex or some deal watch she got at the conclusion of some fancy deal Nakatomi was doing, which frankly to me sounds more like investment banking or merchant banking, yet it's Nakatomi trading. But again, we can get to those problems later. I would bet based on his very like classic Wall Street banker vibes, arrogance, cocaine, flashy watches. I'm going to go ahead and guess he's not good at his job. And he's been trading on his privilege to skate by. And I'll he does not make it to the second movie. So take from that what you will.
He kind of decides to take matters into his own hands about halfway through the movie, and in a very memorable scene. I guess the nice thing you could say about that character is, and I noticed this on my last rewatch, he did kind of try to keep Holly out of it, right? Because he pretends like he's the one who knows John and like they're friends, and that's why John's at the party, and he doesn't like reveal that John is married to Holly.
He could have sold Holly out really fast.
He totally could have. And I guess he was like really confident that wasn't going to be necessary.
Yeah, I don't think he's smart enough to sell Holly out. I will say, like, I think he just doesn't understand she's like collateral here.
Yeah. Well, and he has some like quotes when he's talking to Hans Gruber that are like, talking about it like it's a deal. Like, hey, you're in business. I'm in business. This is just, you got a hostile negotiator running around. You need to neutralize that. Like he tries to sort of make friends with them. It's a funny scene, but yeah, I would have to say just based on that, probably not great at his job. Henrichs, you have the final ruling on both Richard Thornburg and Harry Ellis, good or bad at their jobs?
I mean, anytime when Ellis pulls out John baby, anytime you're using baby in a professional setting, it makes me question. But, the 80s were different times, for business. And
cocaine was a huge part of like the work, that you're doing on Wall Street, right?
Well, it sadly knew quite a bit around that, and the stories of traders in the pit trading days in Chicago and New York, right, where before trading was all behind terminals, the stories you would hear, right, about just the rampant drug usage, and having worked with some of them, because at Rock Maple, all of our LPs were hedge funds, right, and so we had a lot of these old school trader types, that had been part of it. Quick book
they just call that
recommendation.
Adderall now, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. Right now, it just has a prescription rather than getting it on, a certain corner.
All right, question 5, and Kiah, I'm solely going to direct this one to you because I think you read way more romance books than anyone else on this podcast. We also specialize at times when we do podcasts together on unanswerable questions, and so my unanswerable question for you is: after this movie is over, do you think that John and Holly fully reconcile and get back together? Does it last after this very dramatic reunion?
Oh, interesting. I 100% think that he was in the wrong. He owes her a big apology. It's unacceptable that he tells his cop buddy about the things he should be telling his wife about why they were separated. He shows up at her work, as far as I can tell, not fully invited, not uninvited, immediately picks a fight, uncool. So I think he's got a lot of work to do personally before he's really ready to reconcile with his wife and avoid these issues in the future. And I'll also just say, props to her for probably making more money in the relationship. And I understand that that's probably a source of insecurity for him as well.
I think all of those things are true. I think the fact that he brought a stuffed bear has to give him some credit.
Oh, that's crap.
He brought a stuffed bear. For a New York City cop to take a stuffed bear through the airport and to the office,
what is
that's
this,
embarrassing.
The Notebook and then the state, the fair scene?
Well, he was doing his best. He was doing his best.
Maybe if those are for his daughters, I could understand a large stuffed animal, but not for your grown-up wife.
Yeah,
that's note to self.
The kids
go do some more Christmas shopping for Jess.
Return the bear, Henrichs.
Return the bear. Yeah.
Also,
apparently
he
that's
got really weird
down.
about her last name. He's not giving I'm a supportive partner energy. And I think she's going to have to do a lot of work to validate his and make him feel secure in the relationship. And I don't know if she has the bandwidth always for that. She needs a partner, not a third child.
I did find, that's fair, I suppose. I did find his answer, I'm a New York City cop and I have to put bad guys in New York City way. I can't just leave. I thought that was a reasonable answer for why she got a great job, but he has a job that's really important.
Famously, cops can't change jobs when they move.
Well, this is all happening before remote work. You're telling me Holly can't do what she does via Zoom? Maybe this just doesn't.
He would be giving up he'd be giving up a good pension too if he left.
It sounds like that. Based on what we saw, the LAPD has some vacancies.
So you think after this movie, he just steps in and is deputy commissioner of the LAPD? I mean, honestly, that kind of does make sense because you'd think the mayor of LA would just be hey, you should come work here. We do have some openings. So that actually does make a lot of sense now that you say that, Kiah. I hadn't thought about that.
Oh, I don't know. You kind of blew up a building and shot a bunch of people.
I mean, he has his own style. Geronimo, motherfucker. All right, so
we didn't talk about people who are good at their jobs, and most of the cops in this movie are bad at their jobs.
Terrible
really
at their jobs.
Actively bad at their jobs.
Well, that's
including
why I didn't...
starting with the 911 call.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The 911 call, very bad. I thought that about the FBI agents are famously bad at their job in this movie. They're the top of bad at your job. That's why I didn't even ask about them. It's the answer is clearly yes. They're terrible at their jobs. All right, let's get to the question that sent Kiah and Mikula and maybe Henrichs down many rabbit holes. The MacGuffin of the entire movie, the thing that the entire plot sort of revolves around if you strip it all the way back. What are bearer bonds, Kiah?
Okay, so this is a question, again, the question that I had to stop watching the movie the first time I saw it to research because it just didn't make any sense. And that's because they kind of don't really exist anymore. Bearer bonds are, they're a bond is a debt instrument. And these are unusual because they're not registered. Today, stocks and bonds are all registered. So it's clear who is the owner of the debt instrument. And back in the 80s and before, bearer bonds would be unregistered. And so the word bearer refers to the person who bears the instrument or holds the instrument. And in my research, I went down a rabbit hole of like, how do you store, keep, and redeem these instruments? And these bonds would have like coupons attached to the side of them, and the bearer of it would have to rip off the coupon and present it to a registered agent or like a bank or a brokerage, and then they would cash in the interest coupon and then give it to you. At the time the movie is made, bearer bonds are on the outs. They are leaving our financial space. This includes because the Treasury stopped issuing bearer bonds. Most corporations had stopped issuing bearer bonds, and there's a really important Supreme Court case that allowed the interest on these bonds to be taxed, and so there became an issue about taxing the interest and bearer bonds, like you don't, because there's no registered list, there's no list of who owns the instruments. It was really easy to avoid paying taxes on this interest because the bearer would have to report it to the government. After, as these are getting phased out, they're going to have registered bonds instead, and then here the corporation or the municipality would keep the list and then report the interest to the government, but also the municipality could directly pay the interest to whoever was supposed to hold it. So I hope that answers the question of like that we'll spool out with, but that's what they are to begin with. It
was the crypto of the 1980s, right? Like it was anonymous. It was meant to
shocking. It's shocking to me how many movies apparently bearer bonds played an important role in. One of you mentioned in the chat that they also come up in Beverly Hills Cop, another one of my all-time favorite movies from growing up, by the way. And apparently, I was also just Googling while we're recording, and apparently they also come into the plot of Mission Impossible, which is filmed in '96 after this change has gone into place. So apparently the idea of bearer bonds very large in the imagination of screenwriters and filmmakers.
Yeah, it feels like in some ways they were kind of designed to be the perfect like movie plot device because Kiah, to your point, there's a reason they stopped issuing these in the US. Like it is like a money laundering dream, right? You just have these bearer instruments that can just sit, I guess, in a vault and be used for like tax evasion purposes. I mean, this gets to my follow-up question, which is, why do we think the Nakatomi Corporation had $640 million in bearer bonds in its vault? Like, what is it? What are they doing with those? Was that a common corporate finance strategy?
Okay,
Jason, do you want to? Are you going to talk about this? Okay.
So there was a rather lengthy recent blog post, which, complete side tangent, was written by the son of Richard Dreyfuss. Kiah, I don't know if you realized that or went down that rabbit hole. I definitely wasted half a morning reading about Richard Dreyfuss's son and how he's estranged from his family, but that is neither here nor there. His analysis hinged on the TLDR basically being like the punitive treatment to repatriate Nakatomi Trading Corporation's profits from outside of Japan into Japan. So between currency controls, interest rates, tax rates, basically Nakatomi Trading Corp is like going gangbusters in the US, and rather than losing, a substantial share of those profits by repatriating them to Japan under this unfavorable regime, I guess they're just like letting them pile up in the vault on the 30th floor of Nakatomi Plaza. Something that also was mentioned in that blog post, I suppose based on like a very brief couple of seconds of the movie, the coupons are still attached to the bonds, meaning they haven't even been depositing the coupons. They're just hanging out there, still attached on the 30th floor of Nakatomi Plaza. So that is like some Monday morning quarterbacking trying to graft on some sort of like coherent reason. I'm not sure that the people making this movie, were considering the Japanese tax rates, interest rates, cost of repatriating foreign profits when they were drafting the plot.
I really hope that they were. I mean, Mikula, you brought this up when we were putting the notes together for this. Like, at the end, Hans Gruber's like, I'm going to be sitting on a beach earning 20%. Like, they didn't pay 20%, did they?
They paid 8%.
8%.
It's on the certificate, yeah.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So they pay 8%, but okay, I was not clear on like how Hans Gruber knew about these being in the vault, like what he's planning. Like I get why it can be a lot of money that you don't have to like have all in cash and like anyone can have it. Like that part kind of makes sense to me as a movie plot device, but yeah, like how he knew about them and what he was planning to do with them, I was not clear on that either.
Yeah, I'm not aware they ever answer how he knows that they're in that building.
I don't think they do. He's it's well researched, right? Like he knows everything about the Nakatomi Corporation. He knows everything about Takagi. Like he's clearly done all of his research. But yeah, that part was not totally clear.
Can we just call out for a second the important phrase "clipping coupon" comes from doing this, right? It's not like getting the Sunday paper and cutting out coupons, like coupon interest rates, and calling it clipping coupons. This is where it comes from. Like that's how essential bearer bonds are, not just to bad movies, but to the world of finance.
Did you ever own a bearer bond, Henrichs?
No. Closest I came, and it's kind of a second cousin, is the good old traveler's check.
Another 1980s
like cash,
movie.
yep.
Yeah. That's a good one. Kiah, like if we wanted to do a modern remake of Die Hard, which is you wouldn't have any way of knowing this since you don't watch movies, but there are actually a lot of sequels and additional sequels to Die Hard. But if we wanted to do one now, are there still bearer bonds out there? Like, is this still a like viable plot device for a movie?
So it's hard to know because famously no registered list, no lists exists of these. Now, in my research, which was archival, so just Googling bearer bond in New York Times archives, as of 1997, there were $99 billion of bearer bonds still in circulation.
Whoa.
And then I was looking at the Wikipedia, but they have a citation on this. All bearer bonds that were issued by the U.S. Treasury had matured as of May 2016, and 870 million had yet to be redeemed by March 2020. Now, a lot of entities issued bearer bonds, and the biggest holdouts were municipal governments. And so maybe it's possible that a muni issued bearer bonds in 1985, and if they were longer than 30 years, then they hadn't or have recently matured, but it's possible that you could have one of these in you're going through your parents' attic and you find some certificates that look like apparently high school diplomas. Yeah. And then you would clip the coupon and bring it into a bank and try to explain no, this should still be valid. It should still have interest. It just hasn't been capitalizing since the bond has likely matured.
Well, it feels like one of the challenges, I think, now with bearer bonds, and there's actually a really interesting part of the Treasury Department's website. They have an informational overview of different types of bonds and sort of different schemes that have been run on them over the years. But apparently a fairly common thing, and this was more 10 to 20 years ago, was to sort of pretend like you had discovered a secret cache of bearer bonds, but you were actually forging them. So it's I guess the theory is you do your own sort of historical research to figure out where plausibly the U.S. Treasury might have sent bearer bonds 100 years ago, and then you sort of mock up what they look like. So counterfeiting in this space is still, I think, somewhat attempted, but it feels like Treasury has sort of gotten their arms around how to sort of call people's bluffs on that. I wonder if you actually found real ones if Treasury would just tell you to fuck off because they just don't believe that you have them. Feels distinctly plausible. All right. Question number 7. John McTiernan agreed to direct this film based on the condition that it would have, quote, some joy and not simply contain mean and nasty acts as seen in other terrorist films. 2-part question for each of you. Do you think he succeeded in that? And if so, what is your favorite joyful part of the movie? Mr. Henrichs, you go first.
I mean, the reunion at the end when you've got this story of redemption, first with McClane and his wife, and then when Hans, seemingly rises from the dead, and, you see the redemption, the whole thing is just feel good. At the end of the day, Die Hard is a feel good movie.
He's teeing up a later argument. Kiah, don't let yourself be triggered by that yet. Kiah, how about you? Did this movie succeed in trying to find some joy, and what was the most joyful part of the movie?
Yeah, I definitely agree with the New York Times' contemporaneous review that it is a silly movie. And so the giant teddy bear, I think, is played for humor. I thought it was pretty funny that the police car gets stuck on the steps and then is blown up. I thought that was
the big ATV one that's supposed to be all terrain and can't make it up the stairs. Yeah,
it can't make it up the stairs. I was about to argue in the outline that given that this movie was released in July, every mention of Christmas is probably played for laughs and not actually for serious, thoughtful reflection about the holiday season.
Henrichs, did people laugh in the theater when they brought up the Christmas stuff, or were they like, no, that makes sense because it's a Christmas
Did anyone
movie?
even clock it as significant to the plot?
I don't know. I wasn't that old. I was old enough to be at the movie, but I was excited about, stuff getting blown up, as a 14-year-old there. So I was just pretty excited to be there.
That makes sense. Mikula, how about you? Joyful, and what was your favorite joyful part?
So, I mean, this is less joy, but more of the kind of like little bits of humor that we're referring to. Like when the helicopter full of FBI guys blows up, and the two like in charge FBI guys go like, "We're gonna need some more FBI guys, I guess."
Yeah.
Which is kind of morbid when you stop and think about that. Or even at the beginning of the movie when the character played by Reginald Vell Johnson comes, takes a look around the lobby, he's like, screw this, I'm going home, and he starts driving away. And then Bruce Willis throws a corpse onto his car, starts shooting at him, and he's like, "Welcome to the party, pal." That would just feel out of place in a purely serious action movie, and
yes.
I don't know.
That just screams Christmas.
Yeah. Yes.
It absolutely does. I mean, the other. Speaking of the FBI agents, I will say, even though they're terrible at their job and immediately come in and just screw everything up immediately, I did enjoy them as just sort of bringing a different energy to the film for a couple of minutes.
Tropes.
When they're in the helicopter and they're just like in Saigon. And it's I was in junior high, dickhead. Everything about that was just magnificent and unnecessary if you're just trying to make a serious, dark terrorism movie. So I agree with that take. I think that's right. Kiah, this next question is just for you. Speaking of John McTiernan, the director, and because I know you love white collar crime so much, were you aware prior to doing the research for this film that McTiernan, after becoming perhaps the most famous action movie director of the 1980s and 1990s, pled guilty in 2006 to lying to an FBI investigator and committing perjury in regard to hiring a private investigator to illegally wiretap the phone calls of two people, one of whom was the co-producer of the action film remake Rollerball, on which they were having creative differences. Kiah, he served 1 year for prison/house arrest, 3 years probation, was fined $100,000, and his case almost made it to the Supreme Court. Did you know this, A? And B, is that a crime?
I did not know this, and no, barely a crime. And the way that you wrote that is is the crime that he lied to the FBI or the crime that he illegally is the wiretapping legal, but the lying was not legal?
I don't know. It's unclear. I did a lot of research on this too.
Stupid. Actually, when I was researching this, it seemed like the FBI felt like he wasn't being fully honest, so it actually seemed a little vindictive. They went after him again, for things that again barely seemed like a crime to me.
I will say,
who was harmed
despite
by
the
this?
fact,
Come on, who's harmed?
Well, okay, so let's just say that A, and this is an argument we have a lot in the group chat, lying is bad, Kiah, but two, I will also say, truly insane behavior to have creative differences with a producer on a movie you're working on and deciding to wiretap that individual.
That's not a normal response.
It's not normal behavior. It is not normal behavior. It's so funny because I had heard of John McTiernan because he directed great movies, Predator, I believe The Hunt for Red October. So like Jason, going back to your like action movies that were formative. I think you have. But he actually ended up declaring bankruptcy after all of this eventually kind of broke not in his favor. Wild stats just flying off this movie in every direction. All right, 2 last questions. Question 9, real quick from everyone. What is your favorite quote from what I would consider to be one of the more quotable movies of the 1980s? Mikula, you go first.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go with and this is Hans Gruber, the arch villain terrorist. When you steal $600, you can just disappear. When you steal 600 million, they will find you. Unless they think you're already dead. Like, they're just not going to investigate the fact that they've blown up the roof of this building and killed, like, hundreds of people. Like, oh, case closed.
Case closed. That is a good one. Well, I think, like, isn't the point of that quote to, like, illustrate, like, see, look at this twist that we have. Like, we're not even going to be on the roof. Like, I guess my follow-up question to that is, did you see the twist coming the first time you saw it? Was, like, evident to you that, like, oh, they're clearly going to try to escape, through the basement?
Yeah, where were they going to escape?
That's the part I was curious about.
Well, and that, because they were rewriting the movie even as they were filming it. And so ultimately, like, what gets presented as the way they were escaping was this ambulance that was, like, stowed in the parking garage.
Right.
But by the time they decided that, they had already filmed other stuff in that parking garage where there was no ambulance. So they had to, like, go back and throw some stuff out. So I think
funny.
It's having a bit of a high expectation, expecting the movie to be, coherent.
That's fair. And I guess consistent with contemporaneous reviews of the movie. Henrichs, how about you? Favorite quote?
I mean, it would be too obvious to go with
you're gonna no.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. But
yes,
actually, the one I love is when Hans calls out. He's like, this time it isn't going to be John Wayne walking, off into the sunset with Grace Kelly, and then Bruce Willis comes back with. That was, who is it? Grace Kelly, motherfucker, or something like that. And
yeah.
Just such a great line. Or Gary Cooper. He's like, that was Gary Cooper, asshole.
Oh, right. I forgot about that part. Yeah, no, pretty much all the interactions between Gruber and McClane are pretty epic. Kiah, how about you? Favorite quote?
I don't think this movie is that quotable, and I like.
You're not invited to next year's movie podcast.
The Yippee-ki-yay motherfucker is like not even like funny or like I don't know, good.
It is to 11-year-old boys.
Yeah,
I was just about to say we've just proven Kiah is not a teenage boy.
Wait, okay. I want you to know, if you see Die Hard late in life, Al, our producer, when you see Die Hard and then someone's like, oh yeah, yippee-ki-yay motherfucker, you're gonna be like, bro, you sound lame.
No. Al's gonna be like, hell yeah,
You're like, what's this cowboy shit you're talking about? Oh, you're quoting Die Hard? Is this a big significant piece of dialogue in Die Hard? No, it's said once. It's stupid. I don't know why they keep making cowboy references in this movie. It doesn't make any sense. There are quotes that I thought were funny, like Ellis when he's trying to negotiate with Hans is being funny.
That was good.
That's like good, solid 80s corporate takeover shit, like Poison Pill, White Knight. That's funny, but that's not quotable, and none of this movie is in fact quotable.
Oh, bad take. All right, I will, for my quote, do a tie for 2 different Hans Gruber quotes. One is when he's talking to Takagi, and when Alexander saw the breadth of his domain, he wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer. And then he pauses, kind of smirks, and says, benefits of a classical education. Love that. And second, right after that scene, I could talk about industrialization and men's fashion all day, but I'm afraid work must intrude. So I would say Hans Gruber wins for just sheer quality of great quotes. Yeah. Final question, and we will end the podcast with this question, a debate which I don't think we're going to be able to settle, but we'll at least have it out. We've referenced it several times. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? I'm going to go to Henrichs first on this one.
Listen, Merriam-Webster defines it as a Christmas movie, so Kiah can come up with what she wants. It's
what
in
you like
print
look at the definition of a Christmas movie and it's Die Hard's in there.
Die Hard is in it. There you go.
Is that true?
Boom. Yeah.
I'm checking right now.
That's pretty compelling. That's a pretty authoritative source, I will say. That's amazing. I love that.
Okay,
Mikula, what do you say?
I will add, and then Kiah can attempt futilely to try to rebut us. I think we don't. The definition of a Christmas movie depends on context, and that context can shift based on point of time. So when this movie came out in July 1988, I am willing to accept that it would not have been contemporaneously considered a Christmas movie. However, the cultural zeitgeist has empirically shifted. If you have holiday screenings, if you have parties around Christmas time to watch Die Hard, it definitionally has become a holiday movie. I don't think we need to exclude other religions. Thank you. I yield my time.
Nice. He yields his extra time. All right. I don't really have much more to add to that. I will only say in closing on the pro-Christmas side argument that this is not merely like a setting for the film. This is woven into the story of the film. There's all kinds of elements. There's all kinds of lines in the movie that explicitly reference Christmas. If it was just meant to be an excuse for everyone to have a holiday party at Nakatomi Plaza, I would be willing to accept it. But Christmas is woven throughout this entire film. It is, I think, to Jason's point, post facto, after a little bit of time has passed, clearly a Christmas movie and belongs in the Christmas movie canon. Kiah, now you get to rebut all of this.
It's not a Christmas movie.
Period.
Good argument, Kiah. Good argument.
So every element of Christmas in this movie could be substituted out for a reasonable replacement with no impact on plot, almost no impact on dialogue. That's how little Christmas figures into this movie. And so I feel like we just need to have a higher bar as far as like what counts as a Christmas movie. Separately, I've been reflecting on how many dead bodies should there be in any movie that claims to be a Christmas movie. And I'd really appreciate you guys to let me know who is allowed to die in a Christmas movie and in what ways, so that we can figure out if that's. But also in this movie, we have Ellis dies and we have
Ellis is not a good guy.
Well, but he's not a bad
NPC.
guy.
He's an NPC.
And
then we have the head of the company. We have the
that's a bad one.
We have the guy in the front, like the front security
guard.
Yeah, that's true.
So we have a lot of dead people in this movie, and I would argue that I don't know if I think that's quite the Christmas theme. I've been reflecting on what actually determines Christmas movies, and I think that or a holiday movie. And I think that there are movies where the holiday makes more of an appearance from plot in such a way that the plot cannot be divorced from any setting, any dialogue, any Christmas tape, any Santa hat. Like, what are you talking about? Just because these things are in the movie doesn't mean that it's a Christmas movie. That's just plot, or this is just dressing. Like, it's not a Christmas movie, you guys. And it's fine. If you like watching it at Christmas, I'm not going to take that away from you. But you're not going to insult my intelligence with this kid adult movie that was panned hard as not a thinking movie at the time, remains, again, not a thinking movie. And if you like that and it does something for you around this time of the year, good for you.
So hold on, some very brief additional context for listeners. I believe Kiah also has argued that Home Alone is not a Christmas movie.
That's not a Christmas movie, not a holiday movie. Every single thing in that movie can be taken at a different time. You can have Home Alone be in the summer vacation.
No, you cannot.
The only thing that can't happen in Home Alone is the ice on the steps. And I don't know, a nativity scene, have a different thing in front of a church. Are you kidding?
That is so funny
again,
because,
the reconciliation with his son for the neighbor.
That can happen literally any other time during the year.
Memorial Day? That's not a Memorial Day movie. Come on.
It's so funny. You had it, Kiah. You had it, and then Mikula baited you into arguing like another like movie that like
I'll fight on so
clearly
many.
just it like
you guys
it
are so wrong with these Christmas movies.
It pulls your argument completely
Yeah,
off
but
track.
Mikula thought that Mean Girls was a Christmas movie for a little bit.
That is, I'm saying that half in joke based on the Jingle Bell Rock sequence. But
So if it
I've
doesn't
also
have
seen
a
that movie,
Christmas
like,
tree
40
farm, is it not a Christmas movie? Is that the bar for you, Kiah?
I'll argue. Look, man, I will argue that It's a Wonderful Life is not a Christmas movie.
That's insane. That is insane behavior. We cannot have. That's funny you mentioned that actually, because that was the other movie I was contemplating doing because there's a big banking portion of it, but I didn't want to get into that fight on that podcast. So maybe we'll save that for the next year. I will say in ending, everyone is wearing their Christmas best. When this podcast comes out, it will actually be Christmas Eve. So to all of our listeners, I hope you got a chance to watch some
real
Christmas movies,
real ones,
including Die Hard. And thank you guys all for hopping on. This started with like a very dumb idea that I had to drag Kiah into, and then Mikula Henrichs, you leapt in with both feet to like buttress my side of all of these arguments. So I appreciate
What could
you
be
both.
more Christmas than fighting with people about what is a Christmas movie?
It's the most Christmassy thing of all.
better
All
than
right.
pushing them out away to buy a discounted TV at Target.
Exactly. Well, Merry Christmas to all of you. Thank you so much for joining me. This was fun.
Anytime.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Fintech Takes. Stay up to date with emerging companies and the latest fintech trends by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. And if you love Fintech Takes, please tell a friend.